There's been speculation for some time about what exactly would happen were Donald Trump to run for president or become president, and at some point along the way, were to be investigated for crimes or perhaps even convicted. But I think that now those questions take on a special relevance. We're in the immediate aftermath of him being raided by the FBI, awaiting further details about that. So it felt like a good time to touch base once again with those topics. And so we're very lucky to be joined once again on the program by Deputy Editor for Insider, Dave Levinthal. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. Appreciate it.
Great to have you here. You and your team members at Insider have had a lot of really timely work in this area, both about what it would be like were he to be president and be in prison, but also specifically the role of the Secret Service here. I imagine you didn't have any heads up that this raid was coming, but it sure worked out time-wise for you guys at Insider.
Well, we talked to a lot of Secret Service agents, both in the past and in the present, and we put a number of questions to them, as you could imagine. But one specifically was, what would actually happen if Donald Trump went to prison, or even before that, if he was jailed for a period of time because he had been charged with criminal charges of some sort, be that at the federal level or even at the state level? Because you got to remember that even though all the action is seemingly happening in Mar-a-Lago and coming from the Department of Justice here in Washington, D.C., Georgia, Fulton County in Georgia, they have a criminal investigation actively going on against Donald Trump. Bottom line, well, it appears that he would have Secret Service protection going forward, John, for perpetuity, even if Donald Trump was in prison. Most prisoners don't get Secret Service protection. Donald Trump, by virtue of him being a former president of the United States, he almost certainly will, in the opinion of many people who have served in the Secret Service.
So as you said, you spoke to a number of members of the Secret Service. Is planning being developed for how exactly that would work? Like, to say that he would still have the protection while he's in prison is one thing. How that would work in practice is another. Would one have to room with him? Would he have a bunkmate who was a Secret Service member? Would he be eating in the mess hall and in the distance there'd be a guy watching him? Would the guy serve as a spotter for him in the yard as he's cranking out bench presses? How present would the Secret Service be there? Have they thought at all about this?
So obviously, there's no template for this. We've never had a president of the United States or former president of the United States who has gone to prison. So really, there's no book that has been written about this. There is no manual that you crack open and say, all right, well, if a former president does go to prison, what exactly does that entail, at least in terms of his Secret Service protection? What we do know is that there's nothing that says that he won't get it. In fact, all presidents of the United States, once they exit the White House, once they leave office, they are entitled to this protection. And there's nothing that says that it would be stripped from them just automatically if they were to go to prison. So what would it look like in practice? Well, based on the interviews that we've done, it would probably be something in between the two extremes of having a Secret Service buddy play basketball with you in the prison yard or do those bench presses with you and nothing at all. It might be a situation where the person was present, or the agents, the people were present. Maybe they would be working with the warden in a prison in order to figure out exactly what the technical details would be. It was funny when one Secret Service agent said, look, it might be a good time for a Secret Service agent to get a master's degree. They would have a lot of time to read. They would have some time to study, while basically they sat around and did nothing otherwise. Yeah. So lots of different mind games and kind of philosophical flights of fancy that you could go on to figure out exactly how that would look.
And see, I thought I'd always heard that members of the Secret Service generally had advanced degrees. Maybe they could get a second one or something like that.
A doctorate.
A doctorate, perhaps. Okay, so that's interesting. So just to clarify, obviously no president has gone to prison, no former president. There are of course other people who get Secret Service protection, their family members and things like that. Nobody has gone to prison. No family members, no VP, no anything like that.
We know of no situation where a Secret Service agent was permanently present for anyone. And I should note too, John, that the law could change here. Now, Congress, if it wanted to, they could pass a law saying, well, under certain circumstances, a former president of the United States would not be entitled to Secret Service protection. So the book, even though there is no book written about this at all, the book, so to speak, has not been written in granite, in the sense that lawmakers could decide, well, there's going to be a different way to handle this in the event that President Trump was to not be a free man anymore.
Okay, that's understandable. And just to clarify, I know we've talked about this previously. It is not inconceivable that we could end up in this situation. I mean, in terms of whether they would actually do the charges or convict him, that does seem difficult even following the raid. But as we've talked about, there is nothing stopping him from becoming president, going to prison, still being president, or even running for president from prison. It would make stump speeches harder to give, but there's nothing in the Constitution or in the law that would stop that from happening.
I mean, look, this may all seem crazy and harebrained, but we are in a situation where the former president is facing multiple points of peril and potential criminal peril. So this is why we're raising the question at this point, to explore exactly how that would work out in practice. To answer your next question, yes, the president could continue, the former president could run for president again in 2024 if he was under criminal investigation, even if he was indicted. And if you want to take this to its logical extreme of extremes, there is no indication from any of the experts, historical, legal, and otherwise, that indicates that he would be prevented, Donald Trump would be prevented from running for president and also winning the presidency and serving as president while in prison. The Constitution does not at all say anything to the contrary. And there is no law that specifies that a person would have to step aside if they were in some sort of a legal situation as described and wanted to run for the presidency. Now, as a practical matter, is this going to happen? Would Donald Trump be able to be president of the United States from the White House, deliver a State of the Union address, sign bills, do all the other things? Almost certainly not, but we are getting into some incredibly uncharted legal territory with Donald Trump in a way that's causing us to raise these questions at this point.
Yeah, there's nothing that says that he has to be sworn in DC or live in the White House or anything like that. These are just traditions, correct?
Right, and you can think of different presidents. LBJ, he was sworn in on a plane outside of Dallas when John F. Kennedy got shot. Teddy Roosevelt was sworn in my beloved hometown of Buffalo, New York, after William McKinley died. So there are definitely historical precedent for different presidents of the United States not doing it in the traditional style of standing up on the Capitol steps and doing it in front of a crowd.
Awesome. I want to ask you one final question, just because I, like many people, the viewers of this program, we're not in DC. We're reading the how people in politics and media seem to feel about this. I don't know how out and about you've been today, but if we could just do even a brief vibe check, how is DC processing this bombshell?
I mean, it's a bombshell after a bombshell after a bombshell. I mean, it wasn't 24 hours ago when the massive giant news was the fact that Joe Biden got his wish and got a $700 billion plus bill finally passed through Congress that was going to deal with environmental issues and energy issues and healthcare issues, and finally after a year plus got that passed, even if it was in shorter format than of course many Democrats would have liked it to be. And then of course this happens, and Donald Trump is suddenly finding himself being searched by the FBI in his Mar-a-Lago residence. So here in Washington DC, I mean, be glad that you might live any other place in DC, because 24 hours can pass and it feels like there's been about 10 different news cycles that have come and gone in that period.
Okay. Well, especially for those of you in other parts of the country, you should definitely be following the work of both Dave as well as his colleagues. If you want to understand these uncharted territories, it's a great place to get rundowns of a lot of these other areas, both what's happening and also speculation about what could come. So head over to Insider and you can see that there. As always, Dave Levinthal, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.